as they come on. And he's pushed record, so we're now recording. Welcome to everyone on the recording. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Belinda Chaplin. I am part of the team that runs the European Leaders Learning Community. And I'm very privileged today to be able to host this event. I'm actually not in Europe right now, I'm in South Africa, but I normally live in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I'll be back there next week already. Before I actually introduce El and hand over to him, I just wanted to take this opportunity to share some more information about some prayer initiatives that are going on that you might not know about. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly. So the first one is called the Intercession Connection, and it actually happens every month in Europe. It's run by our YWAM Europe Prayer Network. There's the Zoom link. It is also going to be on the ELLC Facebook page, so you can get the Zoom link there. The one this month is actually going to be on the Ukraine, surprise, surprise, but it's also on different things that are going on. And it's on the third Thursday of every month. So tomorrow is the third Thursday, so that's going to be happening tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central European time, 17th of March. And the next slide, if I can get it across, is about the ongoing prayer meetings that have been happening in response to the war in the Ukraine. So this will be again on Friday. It was this morning from 8 to 8:30, and I'm pretty sure that's going to continue next week. I hadn't heard word if it wasn't, but I'm pretty sure it will continue. There's the Zoom link. It's been amazing to see how many people have come onto that. And we've had different people share. It's only half an hour, so 10 minutes of sharing and then 20 minutes of prayer. And I've actually been able to be in prayer groups you get into a prayer group, but I had the first time I was with Jeff Fountain, and the second time I was with Romke Fountain. So I felt I had a bit of a fountain anointing. But I think, it's just amazing. We can pray with people from all over Europe. And that's what we're also going to sort of emulate today. So the format is going to be, I'm going to introduce El to you now. And then I'm going to hand over to him. And Tove has said it's going to continue next week. Thanks, Tove. For those of you that don't know El, I think pretty much everybody does. He is, with his wife, one of the founders of YWAM Slavic Ministries. They are working themselves to the bone right now because of all that's happening in Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. But El was actually, for those of you that don't know, his family is actually Ukrainian. So they fled from the Ukraine during, I'm guessing, the Second World War, in that time when there was famines and all sorts of things going on just after. And he was born in China while they were refugees there. And then they went to San Francisco, where he grew up in a sort of Slavic community. And he was recruited by Lauren very early on in 1964 to come on one of those Caribbean outreaches. And he actually met his lovely wife Carolyn, is sitting in the background working really hard. There she is. In Europe when they were doing the School of Evangelism together. And they then went on to form, as I said, the YWAM Slavic Ministries in 1973. So I'll just to make you feel really old, that was before I was born. So bless you. I'm really excited to hear some of your stories, but also some of your really deep insights into the situation that we find ourselves in now in the Ukraine and Russia, and just your perspective, which we find so valuable. This is, as we said, being recorded so it can be shown later to other people. It is a privilege to be able to hear you, El, and we look forward to what you have to say. So he's going to share, and then we're going to break into prayer groups after that. Thank you, El. Over to you.
Well, this is a real privilege, and in some ways, I can't use the word fun. It's not fun, but just a good experience, just seeing all your faces and all good friends, and it's like a good meeting amongst friends, and prayer meeting, but a good meeting among friends. So greetings to you all, and it's good to have you all together here like this. which was under different circumstances. But yeah, these days our life is kind of like someone described it. You wake up early in the morning and go to see if Zelensky's still there, and then you can have your cup of coffee. And that's kind of what I do. And this morning just got up to see if Zelensky's still there, and he was speaking to our Congress. And yeah, I had some quite some words for them. And but yeah, the reception has been incredible for this man that has stood up and spoken out and become a real world leader in just a short time. But yeah, the situation is pretty grave, and it's a world situation. It's not just a Ukraine thing. It really is a matter that the world needs to come behind. And I am so thankful these days for YWAM. I'm thankful for our family. I'm thankful for our networks. I'm thankful for our worldwide family that we have. Lauren, in the early days of when we were just established, we had our first base in Lausanne, and then our second base had just been established in Hurlock, and we actually lived there for a couple of years too. But he said prophetically, I think he said, you know, it's good to have our bases spaced like this. And at that time already, teams had moved out, and we were beginning DTSs and ministries in other places. But he said, you know, when troubles come, we'll be close to each other. We'll be able to go to each other's bases and help one another. And boy, has that taken place. I mean, that prophecy is just so come true now, as here just in Ukraine itself, you have the bases that are well, they're not even a day apart. They're Ternopil and Kiev are probably only about 6 hours or so to drive to on a good day. But now, of course, it's a good day apart for all of our bases now. But the main thing too is the surrounding bases, completely surrounding Ukraine, with Romania and Poland and Hungary and Czech and Slovakia, and all these bases that have just responded. And you see the pictures there of their warehouses that they're filling with goods. And Hurlock, I just love their story of just the whole village just responded. And you know, having lived there and remembering the village and their feelings toward us, a bunch of hippies living together in this castle and not understanding us. But now here's the whole village responding, bringing goods, you know, and then the mayor of the city commandeering the local fire truck, you know, to deliver them to the border. I mean, what a story, you know, and just that's the story of Europe right now, as they've just come around. And you know, that layer that we have where there are all the refugees, 3 million now have left, and they're going to the border areas of Poland, Romania, Moldova, all these countries. And but then you know, the work that's gone on and the response from everywhere to come to the borders now to help. But then the other layer you have of YWAM bases outside of that now, you know, with Holland and Germany and Norway and Finland and the response from there, and just seeing these big semi trucks being filled and taken to these areas. And yeah, what a testimony and what a blessing to be part of this family. And then we have had the blessing of being part of that even greater international family these last weeks, as they have responded. I've been sending this letter out, prayer letter, and Lauren has sent it out to all the different lists that he has around the world, and they have responded in incredible ways today. And we have people taking offerings in the Solomon Islands and Hong Kong and all over the world. I mean, the response and the letters coming in have just been amazing. So what a wonderful family we have, that has been able to respond in this way. In Ukraine itself, the kids there, and again, I call them kids. There was a Russian, one of our Russian leaders wrote a letter about how they were going to still have their upcoming DTS no matter what. And he says, and he called the students children, and someone responded, said, well, I wouldn't call DTS students children. And I had to respond by saying, well, culturally, it's a little bit different. Children, how in the Slavic language it's a soulish language. They speak from the soul, and when you say that, you mean basically this endearing term that you will still use. Who knows? Maybe through the 20s, whatever. They're still children. And you call them that because that's endearing in that way. And he said, these children that have come to our DTS and giving their lives, in this way to learn the things of God and to be able to share them with the world. And so, basically this war is children and it's kids, it's 18, 19, 20-year-old soldiers out there that are dying, and it's so sad because these should be in our DTSs, both Russian and Ukrainian. They're our DTS students that are being slaughtered, and it requires a lot of our prayer and concern for that. But again, the Ukrainian young people that stayed on, they didn't leave. They stayed in Kiev. They stayed in Ternopil. Some, of course, the families, the mothers with children have left for Poland and elsewhere. But a lot of the young ones, especially, just stayed, and they're working from morning till night, getting hardly any sleep, doing these driving things that are a movie, and you just hear the stories and what they're doing. It's amazing. But they will drive from Kiev to Ternopil, delivering people, with a whole bunch of vans, and we've been helping them to get more vehicles and all. And so they will do that, and then deliver the people in Ternopil. The Ternopil guys, they have totally revamped their base there into a refugee, actually a processing center. They can house some, but there's so many that come. One night, the mayor of the city said, we've got 6,000 people coming in tonight. Can you handle them? And here they go to work, and again, the other blessing that we've had in talking about networks is they've got this network of churches, something like 32 churches in Ternopil itself, and then the outlying areas more. And so these pastors have come to the YWAM base there, and it has already, before all this began, was a center for them to come and pray together. And so they've had this network, and so quickly the pastors, others come, and one of the blessings of this whole refugee situation has been that, in fact, even the UN Refugee Committee has stated that this has been different than any other one that we've seen, in that people are just taking people into their homes everywhere. They'll come drive to the border and pick people up and take them home, and so in Ternopil they spread them out into the churches, the homes, and then of course over the next days they're taken onto the border. In the meanwhile, Ternopil has also become a real center for receiving goods. And so the goods come in and they're loaded up in these vans that have brought people. And now that's taken back to Kiev. and some of the other cities as well, and distributed among the people there. And the ministry that has developed into has been really incredible. I mean, they go to little grandmas that are stuck in their homes, and sometimes it's a whole basement of grandmas. Just they can't go anywhere. One of my own cousins is right now in Mykolaiv, one of the cities that's been very hit very badly. She's in a basement like that right now, and we've been trying to keep in touch with her through her daughter. And but she's one of these, like the ones that they're going and just bringing food to and supplies to, and it's become a ministry that yeah, it's just an unbelievable thing. So we need to pray for them, and again, we're just so proud of everything that they're involved with and what they're doing. Regarding the situation, and I guess like me, all of you are probably wondering, what in the world is going on? What is this leader Putin thinking? And or is he thinking? And how can anyone do anything like this? So destructive, and just you watch the bombs just coming down, and it's just, especially this last couple of days, have been very nerve-wracking. Just watching these cities literally being destroyed, and we can just go back to just a few years ago and see what happened in Syria. And see the pictures of, and it's still that way today. It's just nothing but rubble where the war zones were. I mean, it just literally destroyed block after block after block of apartment buildings, and it's still just cement blocks laying there today. And you think, what is the reason for this? Just the commentators are trying to figure it out, and of course politicians are, and there's it's something that's not easy to do, and I've been doing that a lot in my mind, trying to search, and of course we've been praying, all of us, in this regard, but just I think there's just several things, and I'll just share just a couple of things that to me have become reality in this. And one is I honestly believe that this is far beyond human dealings or acts of human beings. I mean, the Bible says that we don't deal just with flesh and blood, but with powers and authorities in high places. And if you look back at the history of this part of the world, you can see that it's been this recurring thing. And the recurring thing was this huge empire that started out centuries ago. And at one time, I think it would have been about the 13th century, it was the largest empire in the world. And reached clear down, it encompassed China and went all the way down to India, but then it stopped right along what is the border today, what we would have called the Iron Curtain border, the east and west. And that's where it stopped. And over the years, this has recurred over and over again. Charlemagne built a whole line of castles that goes along that line, and many of the ruins are still there today. And you can, like Lauren's thing, they're about a day apart. You can actually see them, just some of them, it'd be less than a day apart, but you could see them one to the other, just a whole chain, and right along that same border. And so, and mistakenly, people call Russia. This has been the biggest mistake we've made in this last the whole past century, it's never been just Russia. It's been an empire that's made up of over 100 different nations, and it's still today. It's not Russia. You've got Chechnya there. You've got Dagestan. You've got Armenia. You've got all these. Well, Armenia is not part of Russia, but part of the ones part of Russia. There's still over 100 different nations that make that up, and so it's an empire, and Putin has a desire to bring that empire back together again. And I don't think it comes just from him and his own personal desire, although it's become that. I think it's this greater spiritual thing that of these powers and authorities that feel like this belongs to them. And so yeah, that's been that to me is a big part of it, and where we need to understand that, and where we need to fight some of these battles spiritually. The other is that in the foundation of Russia and Ukraine, again, if you understand the history of the two countries, the Slavs came out of the Carpathian Mountains, which would be, kind of around the borders of Ukraine and Slovakia and Poland, that kind of the Carpathians there. And so, but they spread out, and the Western Slavs moved down west, actually, became Poland and Czech, Slovakia, all these countries. The Southern Slavs, in fact, Yugoslavia means land of the Southern Slavs, and then the Eastern ones went east, and that was the Russians, and the Russians have been basically very much under Eastern domination for centuries. The Mongols, the Tartars, and the Western part. Ukraine and down, and Ukraine, actually the word Ukraine means border, and so it is the border of that eastern part that we spoke about. So it's the borderlands, and that means Ukraine means that, and so, but Ukraine was subjugated by Poles, Lithuanians, Germans, very Western. And because of the Eastern side being so much engulfed by Eastern philosophy, Eastern thinking, fatalism, intrigue, a lot of the whole East, what we think of Eastern, Russia kind of took all of that in, and that became part of Russian thinking, and it's still so strongly there. Putin is very much a part of that. The whole thing. You think over the centuries, the intrigue, the spying, and he's a spy master, and but that whole Eastern thinking, Eastern ways that are there. Ukraine and the West. They've had a whole different history, and that has been very affected by the Reformation, very much Western philosophy, and so Ukraine and Ukrainians think very differently than Russians, and that's where this whole thing is Ukraine part of Russia, which Putin claims is it's always been. They've been the same. No, they're totally different, and that whole Reformation thinking has had a real effect on Ukraine. Spiritually, it's the spiritual center of Eastern Europe. Even to today, probably 80% of the pastors in Russia are Ukrainian. It's just in YWAM, when our parents escaped from that part of the world, and I was introduced to YWAM early on. We were able to bring a lot of our Ukrainian kids into YWAM, and so it's been a real impact on that as well. And not just with YWAM, but many other groups have Ukrainian leaders, so there's been this push and kind of like almost an army that's been raised up even in the West of Ukrainians to minister throughout Eastern Europe. And many of my friends are leaders of different missions, mission groups and all. And but God's really used the Ukrainians throughout history in these ways, and it's had an impact on that, and you can see again why the enemy would love to destroy that. So you've got all these different factors, you know, that the enemy wants his territory, that whole eastern side. The enemy would love to destroy this next generation of young people. The enemy would love to put a stop to all that's happening in Ukraine, which has today some of the largest churches in all of Europe. Yeah, it's still a real lighthouse into that part of the world. So you have all of these factors there that need prayer, and we need to again stand against the enemy and really see victory during this time. Putin is again, there are a lot of books and documentaries that have been made on him, and to understand him as a person, it's quite a task. But you know, how did this young guy come out of nowhere, just a KGB operative that was based in East Germany, and very quickly rose up to become the leader of that whole part of the world, and it's not a pretty picture when you read his life and who he is, and you know, I think a lot of people don't understand all the things that happened when things opened up, and of course we took advantage of that time period, and so many teams were able to go, and we were able to see works established all throughout Eastern Europe when things opened up. But the thing is that it didn't develop in quite the same ways that other places have gone politically. Political leaders, you don't have that in Russia. Basically, it's more of a really to understand it, it's more of a mafia type thing of them having taken control and become extremely wealthy, as you know, with these I think they said that a couple of hundred people basically own most of the wealth of Russia, and they're the rulers there, and they all rose up very in very criminal ways, and that's what's marked that whole government all these times. So that's why it's hard to think of dealing with them in normal political ways. You know, when you sit down to discuss things, and we try to understand them from the normal political aspect, you can't understand that in that way, and so they're not politicians. They're extremely filthy rich people that have got their wealth in ungodly ways, and they aim to hold on to that, and so things are happening now that are going to hurt them, and that's sad, and not sad for them, but sad, you know, for the rest of the country, because they could be hurt. I mean, in one sense, losing their yachts and mansions, which hopefully that will happen. But the people themselves are going to suffer, and we don't want to see Russia in that way. And when you understand that their government is in a way not politicians and not the normal type of government, but people that have come into this through criminal activities. And yeah, I mean, you can go into this and I won't, but with poisoning people and people disappearing and we kind of in the West don't want to touch that, and we kind of stay away from them, but that's all that's happening there, and it's an ugly picture. And it would be wonderful to see it come down and crash and yeah, I would love to see Russia freed as well as Ukraine, and to see them finally come into the ability to be able to worship freely and to have the freedoms that we enjoy. And I would say pray for our Russian YWAMers. They're really going through it, and it's so sad. And we're talking to them as well on the phone and getting notes from them. And just sadly, I got one the other day that just said, well, I guess this will be my last note for a while, because Facebook is disappearing, so I won't be able to use this anymore. But we're not able to support them at this time. We're trying to find ways to do that, but it's a challenge, and so they're saying pray for us. But on the other hand, they are doing amazing things. It's really, since the Westerners were thrown out over these last years, and the last of our Westerners just came out this last week. We had a number of them that tried to stay on business visas, and they had established businesses there to be able to do that, but they now have had to leave, and so they're out now. So that's left the Russians there, and it's all young people, really young, but they were ones that were not afraid of stepping out and doing things, and so they had an outreach planned for this summer. 100 young people they were going to take down to Chechnya and Dagestan and have an outreach there, and then they're more were heading up north to the tribal areas. So they're yeah, they want to go into the world, and they want to be YWAMers and do YWAM things. And this leader there in the south, he just wrote a very touching letter saying that we're still going to have this DTS that we planned. We're not going to let them stop this. So remember them in your prayers as well, because they're part of this, and they're suffering, and they're going to suffer heavily these next years, and so we need to pray for them. So yeah, what else could I say? I wish we had well, it's probably time to stop now anyway, but yeah, pray for Ukraine, pray for the downfall of the government in Russia. I know that sounds kind of bad, but it needs to come crashing down, and that's for the good of the whole world, not just Russia and Ukraine.
Well, thank you, Al. That's great to hear those perspectives. I've been taking notes because it's so fascinating. Yeah, and I think we've all got some really good ideas of who we can be praying for and what we can be praying for in our groups. So yeah, Martin, if you wouldn't mind putting us into some breakout groups.